Essentials done. Brilliant. Ladies and gentlemen, and assembled company, it is with great pleasure today I bring a friend of mine. We have shared many fields, haven't we, Anna?
We certainly
And actually, her performing history, if I went through the whole performing history, we'd be at the end of the show. It's been, it's just too much, everything from, from solo to one of the most influential African ensembles of the probably 90s. African Dawn was 90s, wasn't it? And you part of that, and it was just. But she's been last year, and she would have been back this year. She was touring with her own show, and I'm going to let Anna tell you all about it as her regal self. So could we put our hands together and welcome Anna Madiga?
Thank you. Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here with you. Very, very exciting. So I thought, when John first contacted me about doing this, I thought, oh, how do I follow in such amazing footsteps of John Rowe? And with the title being storytelling, I started thinking about the stories that I grew up with that my grandmother told me in Zimbabwe. And then I thought to myself, actually, I've already created a story. And I decided that that's the story I'm going to tell today. In 2016, I think, like most of us in the entertainment industry or in life in general, we have a glitch. And mine happened in 2016, where I just wasn't really feeling it with the music. It was the conveyor belt of touring, working, recording, touring. So I came out of it and thought I just need to find out what I want to do, who I want to become, how I want to make the next 10 years or 20 years. My band previously, before 2016, we played what our audience called sunshine music. So it was bubbly, it was lively, people came and danced and went away very, very happy. And it was a really good thing, but then I thought to myself, I want to do something that challenges people's ways of thinking. I wanted to do something that when I left the show, we'd actually discussed and touched on some of the issues that, that people didn't know about Zimbabwe or Africa. So after 8 months of researching, that's what I started with. After I got a grant from a Scottish organization, and I took the time off. It was called Catherine McGivlery Fund, Get a Life Fund, and it allowed artists to take time off to rediscover themselves. So I was just so grateful that I could have that funding available. In that time, I started talking to Zimbabweans, Africans, English people, the world over. I wanted to understand who we are, this journey that we're on that never seems to end, That was obviously before Corona happened, but in my mind, I was already questioning, where are we going? What is all this about? And I was met with very, very interesting points of view. Some kind of were happy plodding along, and some started questioning as well, and it was actually interesting to know that we're all on the same journey. I started off by researching the origins of my ancestors. So the opening of this show will tell you a little bit into the origins of my ancestors. It then moves on to modern day Zimbabwe. It was 90 minutes of just me on stage, talking, dancing, singing, drumming, playing the mbira. So needless to say, I was very exhausted at the end of it. The Arts Council funded the tour, and we did 45 days across the UK. So yeah, so I'm going to take you on this journey, and hopefully there will be time when we can have questions and we can just talk. I'm going to open up different to the show with Mbira. So for those of you who haven't come across it yet, this is the Mbira. But I play it with my thumbs and my pointing finger. And I have to put it inside the calabash because it's a quiet instrument. So this resonates, this makes the sound bigger. I always try to open with a song about Zimbabwe. And this particular song was taught to me by my uncle when I went back to Zimbabwe in 2014. It's called Zimbabwe, Nyika Yandinoda, Zimbabwe Chiuya, Zimbabwe come back, the country I love. And in those just a few words, if you've been to Zimbabwe, if you were born on that soil, you don't need more words to know what's going on in Zimbabwe and why those words mean so much. So here is Zimbabwe. Zimbabwe Chiuya, Zimbabwe Chiuya, Zimbabwe Chiuya, Zimbabwe Chiuya. Thank you very much. So, the show is called Kure Kure, Far Away. It's the story of migration, ancestors, DNA, and the diaspora. Who am I? I'll tell you who I am. I'm a descendant of the biggest ancestral migration of the Bantu tribe from the Tanganyika and Baka tribal regions. I come from the center of the earth, where the equator line cuts the world in two. From a time before a small group of men played dominoes with the land and the scrabble for Africa began. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Anna Mudeka, and this is my story. My ancestors come from the true cradle of life, where the first woman walked the earth, from a belief in Vadzimu, which holds that the ancestral spirits may choose to return in times of crisis. My great ancestor Nehanda walked out of Guru Uswa, the tall, dense grass at the center of the earth, 70,000 years ago. It was many years later that the ancestors grew restless. You must leave, they told the people. They looked up and saw Hungwe, the fish eagle, circling as the elders spoke of faraway places. The great Bantu migration began. The people followed where Hungwe led, and when they grew tired, Hungwe circled above and waited while people rested. Many years later, the great bird finally landed, and the people laid the first stone of the great Zimbabwe Empire. Mine is a lineage of kingdoms, chieftains, and kingship. The sun rose with the spirits of our ancestors between the mighty Yambeji River, which gushes down at Mosiwotunya and snakes alongside the Pororotemata River, all the way to the Indian Ocean. My ancestors lived during the mighty Roji, Mbire, Wata, and Mwenemutapa dynasties of kings. They ruled for centuries. King Nyatzimba Mututa, the first warrior prince of the Mwenemutapa state, was father to Nyamika Charwe, who embodied the ancestral spirits of Nehanda, who gifted us rain and good harvest. Gainai! Tina Nwamna Save Mondor, Tina Nwamna Save Mondor, Tina Nwamna Save Mondoro Dino Nwamna Save Mondoro Dino Nwamna Save Mondoro Dino Nwamna Save Mondor, Tina Nwamna Save Mondor, Tina Nwamna Save Mondoro Dino Munasabe mondoro tino munasabe mondor tina no munasabe mondor tina no munasabe mondoro tino mondoro tino. Nehanda is my ancestor, and I'm filled with pride. She's the lion spirit, the greatest medium in a long line of mediums. Charwe, Toreva, Matope, Changamire, Gumbare Shumba, Soronzo, and my direct ancestor, Murenga. Nehanda is bound to our Bantu heritage by the lion totem, as am I. My totem is Sokomukanya, the baboon, the spy, always looking out in case there's danger. Sokomungane, the one who gathers the people, and Ivasikana Vachitonga, female leaders. I am honored to share the same totem as the founder ancestor of the nation of Zimbabwe, Murenga, who gave us the famous word, Chimurenga, uprising. It was during Charwe, Nehanda's time, that everything changed. A very sick 17-year-old Cecil Rhodes was sent to live with his brother in KwaZulu-Natal, and he soon discovered power. Dear fellow, remember you're an Englishman and have consequently won the first prize in the lottery of life. Imagine how our history would be shaped today if he had never set foot there. He was too arrogant. Taxation on my hut, which I built with my own hands. I have to pay you for my hut? What is this taxation? Hut tax? The first time my people heard the words, they must have thought it was the name of an acute infestation of scabies. Just like the bedroom tax here in 2012. It didn't go down well. The hard tax provoked our first rebellion. From the heart of the great Zimbabwe Empire, the House of Stones, Nehanda Charwe led the first Chimurenga War. In Matabeleland, they called it Umvuhela, and it was Loziwe Nhlonhlo who stepped in. She supported Nehanda to unite the tribes. I can imagine the dialogue now between my ancestors, calling on our people to fight, and that of the early settlers. We must protect our sacred land. We must fight. We will never let the bloody natives get the better of us. It is our nation, the land of our ancestors. None of that heathen mass is a match for a Winchester. Fire and fire again. Ture Mapanga, Chimbo, Museve, defend what is rightfully yours. Advance, no quarter given. Let the enemy fall like feathers to the ground. From that dialogue you just heard, there was a big battle that commenced. They ended up capturing Nehanda and her accomplice Kaguvi. They were executed. They had their heads chopped off. We do not know where her body lays, but her head was sent to England, to Queen Victoria. I have a name that echoes my lineage. They know me as Hamunyare Mudzingwa Saunyama, Mandawe Mudeka. I was born under a strong sky of an African dawn. Mine was a land seamed with gold. Rivers reached up and ate the night stars. Zimbabwe. The ancestors held court in the sacred hills. Zimbabwe. A land cut from the stone of eternity. Zimbabwe. Well, I don't know how many of you are old enough to remember the summer of 1976. That's when I was born. It was a fever hot summer for you here in the UK, but in Zimbabwe, it was winter. I can imagine wrapped up warm in a matching shawl, booties and bonnet. As I grew older, cheerfully padding about in the dusty streets with my cousins. After breakfast, my aunties would use pebbles and mounds of earth to tell us stories of our ancestors, the great kings and queens of Africa, great empires and fictional worlds. When all the neighborhood children got up, hey, we would play rakaraka, pada, nodo. The boys wouldn't let us play bora. So we went and played Duno. I loved Duno. It was my favorite. I would spend ages plotting how I was going to beat my opponents. And then it would be my team's turn to play. And I would look my opponent in the eye. They would throw the ball. Ndaisvetuka, ndoenda kurutivi. Bora renda kuroko. Ndotanga kuzadza bhodhi renevhu. Ndozadza. Bora rakudzoka. Ndokutora. Yay! It's a winner. That was fun. My grandfather nicknamed me Bushman. I was called Anna after my grandmother. An only child, I grew up with my grandparents. There were 12 of us. We lived in a 2-bedroom house with my mother. And let me tell you a little bit about the family. Some of them, not all of them, will be here all day. Auntie Taka, me and her had a bit of a strange relationship. Auntie Taka loved to plait my hair. Unfortunately, I didn't share the same passion. She would pull my hair so tight, I end up looking like I had a facelift for days. That hurt. Uncle David, who was the singer in the family. And then there was me, Patience, and Muta, all the same age. I remember at the age of 5, we would take turns to push each other up and down the street in my old pram, and then would sit on the side of the road and watch the adults go about their work. Oh, and then my grandmother. She was a powerful woman, my grandmother. She would use storytelling, you see, to diffuse squabbling amongst us. Paivapo, she would start. Paivapo. And one by one would answer, Zepunde, Zepunde, Zepunde. And then the story will begin. How Tsuro always used to outwit the baboon. How the children got in trouble for not listening to the adults. And my favorite story of all, how the poor quiet man ended up with the most beautiful girl in the village. My grandmother was one of the last in the family to truly hold the sacred songs of the ancestors. She would sing at the birth of a new child in the township. Nyarara mwana, mwana no chemera, kuchemera mai vake, vaenda mberi kwa mungezi kune banga jena rekucheka nyama ndeparivare, inonziwa, inogurukuta, nekana mzasi. Should lay to rest the dying. Fambai nae nai baba. Fambai nae nai baba. Sometimes she'll be summoned by the ancestors. She'd go very quiet, close her eyes, become transformed. As the children, it was our job to go and get the hari and mukombe. You know, before you have a drink, you must always pour a little bit into the ground to appease the thirst of the ancestors. My grandparents combined cultures in them. She, the Church of England, and my grandfather, Roman Catholic. Their legacy to us was the freedom of choice. I was 3 or 4 years old when I first started negotiating the complexity of Zimbabwe. The sound of aeroplanes, the leaflets dropping from the sky. Support your own people. Freedom is coming. Now is our time. And the Mujibas will be marching up and down in the street. Hoi! 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 I knew that there were streets I couldn't cross because they belonged to white people. I knew that playing bira in public, you would get arrested because it was banned by the Rhodesian government. At night, I heard the songs of war. Buyane handa kuvava chitaura shua kuti tinotora sei nyika inoshoko rimwe ravakatiudza. Tora gidi uzvitonge. Buyane handa kuvava chitaura shua kuti tinotora sei nyika inoshoko rimwe ravakatiudza. Tora gidi uzvitonge. At the age of 13, I recall asking myself, who am I? I also started questioning the role of my father in my life. Who was this man who looked so much like me, who would sometimes bump into the street and would just greet each other like old acquaintances? Yes, mwanangu. Yewe baba. Right. And right. Bariseva makumba. Ava right. Ukwenda kupi? Tatuma kumsika lotenga madomas. Are you being a good girl? Bye-bye. Bye-bye. Off you went. I would always have memories of living with him. The smell of kerosene for light at night. The sound of the bees, the bright sunlight. And the stinging at the back of my legs as my mom slapped me. I was always playing with the main tap in the compound, and she knew where to find me, by the tap. But my mom was so elegant, beautiful lady. And my father, strong, athletic figure, his dreams to become a footballer. And all of a sudden it ended. And I was living with my grandparents in Rugari Township. That's when I discovered the mbira. Our township was a hive for music. Once a year, the most famous musician would roll in, fill the stadium, and would go home after watching them and dream of the lights, the life on stage. Tila, tila, tila. They were the ancestral songs of the Shona people, different tribes. But there was also that of the Chewa and the Nyanja, economic migrants from Malawi who had come to work for the railways. Me and my friends would spy on their greetings on the streets. A lady would go on one side of the street. The gentleman would be on the other side. And they would kneel down and go, Moribanji Bambo. Ah, Tiribuino. Maribanji wana kunyumba. Ah, Maribuino. Ah, Zikomo kayo. Ah, Zikomo. And off they went. Life in Rugare was never dull. There was always something to do. Whether it was look here, 2 streets away, starting a percussion band for the children. Whether it was Godim Robot, training all the youths how to do robot dance, break dancing, whether it was at school with Mr. Chimtanda and Mr. Mparuta, teaching us the importance of the music of our ancestors. And then King George Zikimoyo arrived in Rugari Township at the age of 14, having left Black Umfolosi in Bulawayo, the famous Black Umfolosi. And he arrived in Rugari with all this music, all this talent that he wanted to share with us. From time to time, King George would cycle to the city, come back. He was always looking for that agent who would look at us favorably. And one day, we could see him coming on his BMX. We'd been rehearsing all afternoon. And he came in and said, Dinez winners wanruda kukudzai. So we all gathered. And he said, I've just signed us to an agency in town. And they're going to catapult us out of the township. And we're going to play the music of our ancestors far and wide. Who the man, hey? King George, you're the man. One of my highlights was welcoming the national football team at Harare International Airport when they won Africa's Cup of Nations. I have such strong ties with my ancestral village. I would often get sent, you see, to fetch my great-grandmother to visit the family in Rugari Township. I have wonderful memories of boiled groundnuts, boiled vegetables, pumpkins sweetened by the heat from the sun. Those are some of my best memories as a child growing up in Zimbabwe. Those were the days of song, of strong women. Nehanda, Charwe, Mbuya Chikundi, Mbuya Mudeka, and my dear mother, Evelyn. All this talk of food is making me hungry. So I'm going to play a song about food. This song is called Surudzo. And I learned it from my dear brother, Chatwo Dutiro, who passed away last year. He was such an amazing, wonderful being, teacher. And it didn't matter if you're a boy or a girl, he still had the same passion for teaching and spreading the music of Zimbabwe worldwide. We have so much to thank Chatwell. Msiamwa, we used to call him. So this is called the Surudzo. I know there is this distance that we've got between us, but you can still join in, clap, dance, sing along. But sad times were coming. She'd been to visit so many sangomas, ngangas, witch doctors, all who had promised that they could cure her. When she lost all desire to eat, or pick a fresh papayas from the tree, or cucumber with salt and pepper. I feel so connected to her now when I eat them. She knew her time was short. So I sat down with her as she gifted me her knowledge of healing plants. Guava leaves are good for coughs. Zinyamunga gets rid of wind. Chifumuro protects you from bad spirits. Tangamidzi, ginger is good for the whole body. Mumba maropa, bend the leaves before going to sleep. It stops madzimikira, nightmares. My grandmother was very ill. The cancer had spread all over her body. In that black time, I found solace in Thomas Mapfumo and Effort Mujuru's music, especially Thomas Mapfumo's music. Though they played modern instruments alongside mbira and marimba, they spoke words about real lives. Our lives. Imagine my surprise when Mujuru and then Thomas Mapfumo asked us to join their bands. Me, Patience, and Musa. We were only 17 at the time, but we had the music of our ancestors in our bones. Mbuya knew she didn't have long to live and would see less and less of us due to this adult demanding world we were entering with Thomas Mapfumo and Effort Mujuru. Rehearsals, concerts, tours. But still she supported us. The opportunity came for me to leave Zimbabwe. My grandmother performed the ceremony to the ancestors to guide me on this special journey I was about to take, to protect me, to look after me. 3 weeks after I arrived to the United Kingdom, I received the news that Mbuya had died peacefully, surrounded by the whole family. Thank you.
Wow. That was beautiful. Anna, that was just one of the great moments we've had on the cafe. Thank you so much.
So I get very emotional at the end. It's heavy on me, but it's a strange note to finish on. But
I think you've done that whole personal journey and the journey of the country. It's a magnificent blend. It's just, I can see why you took the time off to build that such a personal sort of work of art.
Thank you.
I regret that I was on the road myself last year and didn't get a chance to actually see the show. When all this is over, if you take it back on, your friend who makes these hat bands, so I got it from him. Well, I carefully took the list from her of where the show was appearing, but nowhere could I get to it. But it was fantastic. It was
we go back on.
Yeah. So Mike, thank you for giving us this opportunity.
Well, I don't know. I'm speechless, Roy. That was just such an amazing moment, wasn't it? It was one of the classic sets of the cafe. So personal and just we really did feel as though we were in the room with you there.
That's what I wanted to create. I wanted to create intimate show that I can see and talk to everybody.
That's brilliant. That's brilliant, and we really hope we can take that to a broader audience as well, because a lot of our audience is on catch up on the cafe. So it would be amazing to help to share that more broadly.
Yes, so it goes, and anyone who's watching, because they might be watching on Facebook or not in the room, go to the page. She's like all artists, she needs little sustenance. We need to pay tribute, and there's little hats you can pay tribute in underneath there. So hopefully, if everything works, you'll be running your festival next year.
Yes, the festival is due to run next year, and we might just change the weekend a little bit because it's always clashed with WOMED. And
not too much, because that was one of my clear weekends, so I could actually have done it this year. It's the first year that I've actually been able to get to you, and then COVID hit.
Oh, okay. I mean, does anybody have any questions? Does anybody want to ask anything? What you've just experienced?
Yeah. Have you? When did you last visit Zimbabwe?
Last visited in 2014.
Yeah.
And I feel I need to go more often because part of my giving back to Zimbabwe was to set up the charity that supports orphans with education. So since 2009, I've been supporting um, hundreds of orphans with their education. So that's where my passion lays with giving back to Zimbabwe.
Brilliant. That's great. I have a question as well, slightly slightly strange question. How do you make your outfits? They look so amazing.
This one was inspired by the prongs on the mbira, the hats, the crown. If I show you the way that the mbira is set, it has this prong. So I got the idea from there.
That's brilliant.
And I also work with a Zimbabwean fashion designer who has to bring what's in my head out. The gown itself was inspired by Black Panther.
It's beautiful. I really like it. Amazing colors as well.
Yeah, my favorite color is orange.
Yeah. That's great.
I love the way you brought the ancientness out, you know, the ancient city of Zimbabwe, and that it took us right back. You know, we were there from, you know, like the beginning of time almost. It was extraordinary.
You see, the Western culture have a history of writing these things down. Ours is passed in storytelling, in the oral traditions. So although we don't have a piece of paper talking about this place called Guru Uswa, the tall dense grass at the center of the earth, that story has been repeated and repeated and repeated. And if you see that route that the migration took, pilgrims still use that route to come and worship the ancestors at a particular shrine in Zimbabwe. But nobody knows why or can explain the way that perhaps the Western culture can identify. So, you know, we're talking about a culture that's also thousands of years old, but we are losing this culture of kind of appreciation, of pride as Zimbabweans, as Africans, because other cultures have come and taken over. And you know, it's up to individuals, it's up to us to preserve these cultures we have within our societies. It's happened to the English culture, it's happened to so many other cultures around the world. But my mission is to preserve what I know of my Zimbabwean culture and share it with the world.
Your genius is to actually not tell it as a museum piece. It's you make it live, and it's a contemporary work of art. It's and I think that, you know, there's there's none of that false romanticism that comes when you just sort of hold a piece in time. You've managed something quite extraordinary.
Oh, thank you. And you know, for me, it was important that people knew that there was such a strong culture before 300 years ago. You know, the kings and queens of what is now Zimbabwe had courts, they held courts, they were trading already. They built, you know, when the first people, Western people, I suppose, first discovered the Zimbabwe ruins, the Great Zimbabwe, they couldn't believe it was built by Zimbabwean people, because, you know, this structure is from the 13th century. And that's where we honored our ancestors. That's where our kings lived. And it's a spectacular place if you ever go to Zimbabwe to visit the great ruins of Zimbabwe. And you know, there is so many places around the world. And for me, Africa is a passion. You know, I really want to go and see all these places and experience the earth, the mother earth from the African soil more.
Well, you must come to Marrakesh when we open our storytelling venue there. We do have plans to have a festival, but we'll have visiting storytellers anyway. So it would just be amazing if you can come and join us there eventually.
I would love that very much. Part of what COVID is done with this play, with this show, is we're now looking for 2021, 2022 to tour it again. But this time it's going to be outside on an open fire. So people actually experience the Africa. Maybe it might be too hot in Marrakesh, but the idea is to do an African setting. So outside the theater, but tell it round a gathering. So yeah, I would love to bring it to Morocco as well.
Fantastic.
We've got Abdu's sitting in. Are you sitting in Marrakesh, Abdu?
Yes, I am. Hi.
Yeah, we've moved our driver from Romania. While you've been talking, we moved from Romania to Marrakesh, and such is the wonder of the World Storytelling Cafe. So Abdu's our boss right now.
Abdu, I think we could arrange a fire, couldn't we, to do a performance in a place with a fire would be possible in Marrakesh.
Yes, of course. You're welcome.
We have a fireplace.
It's a good place, I'm sure. Yeah.
Up on the roof, open air.
Ooh.
We have a lovely roof.
Fire pit. Maybe we could take out a fire pit.
A fire pit would be great.
Find a fire pit.
Yeah.
Find a fire pit out there.
Well, I would be very, very honored to bring the show to Marrakesh to you. It's just an honor to perform for you as well today.
Well, thank you. It's been an honor to be your audience.
Thank you. Thank you, John.
Well, thank you, and it's great to see you. I mean, I might have missed it. I mean, the great advantage of this internet is that I might have missed it in real life last year, and I will catch it when it's back on the road, even if I have to travel to another country to catch it. But I just, it was just a whole different side of you. I'd seen you in many different guises over the years. And so just to see it all come together was just fantastic. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Same as you, there is people who've known me since I was 18 when I first arrived in Norfolk who didn't know other parts of me. So, you know, although we've known each other, but there were other aspects of my life that I hadn't really exposed to the extent I've done with this show.
Yeah, it's great. It's just like, and I think that's a particular artist thing, isn't it? That we've all got lots of different bits of us that we don't show off all the time. But I'm glad you talked about that artistic development at the beginning. You know, it doesn't come out of nowhere. You know, it's so thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye. Brilliant. And we'll tell everyone they've got to come and watch it on catch up. If they go to the archive, well, it'll be anywhere on the site on recent performances for a while. And then it'll just go, but if you go onto the site and it says archive, direct people there.
Okay, the link.
And we'll push it because that was a fantastic show tonight. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Good night.
All right. Good night.